Hey, everybody, welcome to another edition of the Hot Seat for the C-Suite. I am your host with the most ADHD, which is why I created a format where the guest only gets 60 seconds to answer, and we skip all the intro fluff and stuff that nobody really cares about. Today, I'm really excited to actually have a sponsor, one of the co-sponsors for this edition, this season, which is all about managed service providers, MSPs. I'm calling it the VIPs of MSPs. Welcome, Joel Abramson from Top Down. Hey, Joel.
Hey, great to be here.
Yeah, and thanks again for supporting the programming. All right, well, that's it. That's the format. We're going to get right into the very first question. I'm going to put the clock up so both Joel can see it and you guys can see that he actually gets 60 seconds to answer these questions. First question is an obvious one. Where do you guys fit into the ecosystem of MSPs, and how did you get there?
Yeah, well, I'm proud to be here on behalf of myself and my two partners, Mark Scott and Chris Day. Mark was the original founder of Enable, which was kind of one of the solutions that created the MSP industry in the first place. That's what took IT providers from doing stuff like selling projects and a bucket of services with it to actually managing and monitoring machines remotely, and then being able to move to a fixed fee service model. And alas, that's the last 25 years of the managed service space. My other partner, Chris Day, was the founder of ITGlue, which moved documentation from people's brains and tribal knowledge onto a structured system and allowed for MSPs to operate at a much higher rate of efficiency. And so between those two, we have a couple of the Mount Rushmore folks of the MSP space. Oh, and it happens that we built Canada's largest MSP together as a trio. So Fully Managed was Canada's largest MSP that sold to Fully 2022.
Wow, and you got it right in under the clock. Perfect, Joel.
But yeah, no, I'm going to do all of this.
That's impressive what you guys built there. All right, question number two. Let me reset the clock. Okay, how does AI software change the game for MSPs?
Well, if we're diving right into AI, it's because it is the hot topic of today. We're in a transformational moment where everybody's thinking about AI, how AI impacts their businesses. But the reality is MSPs are the gateway and guardians of the small business and the small business operational ecosystem. And so for small businesses to start to embrace and transform their businesses with AI, they need some help. AI is not going to do it for them. And they're not going to call their plumber. They're not going to call their accountant. The best poised companies to assist those SMBs are the technology providers and the MSPs. So that's one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is MSPs themselves. They happen to do a lot of work that AI is really, really good for. Think about cybersecurity, hardening systems, repeatable tasks. And so we believe that AI will transform both SMBs, and MSPs will be the guide, and MSPs themselves and how they operate.
Awesome. All right. So Top Down Founders Fund is the only institutional fund focused exclusively on MSP software. 70% of your investors are MSP operators and former operators. Why is vertical specialization, in your opinion, so critical?
Well, we weren't supposed to talk about that because we're hiding in plain sight. We don't want all the other VCs to start to swarm and jump into this industry. But no, the reality is, vertical expertise in a transformational moment is absolutely critical because context is everything. And so putting horizontal AI agents to work inside an MSP without the expertise on how to solve problems, all the years of best practices, the historical knowledge of the independent individual customers. That's why vertical MSPs thrive so much, because they understand how to use all the different business systems that a lawyer or an accountant would use. We believe that we're having a moment right now where vertical expertise becomes even more important, and MSPs themselves, when we think about our fund focus, is a natural fit.
Awesome. Give me some examples of some of the problems. Oops, sorry, let me fix this clock. Give me some examples of some of the problems that some of your portfolio companies are solving.
Yeah, well, if we're going to, piggyback off of AI, the next words out of anyone's mouth, if you're talking about AI, should be security. Handing over full control of tasks or workflows or your machine to a machine immediately. The other side of that coin is the cybersecurity question. So, our portfolio, the first area of focus was cybersecurity. Our fund started investing in Q4 of 2024. Which is, after post-GPT, post-Cursor. So all the companies we've invested in are AI native. So we think about cybersecurity in an AI world, and that's a really important part. And then let's get on to the how are the AI companies in our portfolio solving repeatable tasks that sit inside an MSP. do we really need humans resetting passwords for people in perpetuity, or do we think that AI could maybe do a better job of that?
And that actually leads into the next. Boy, if I could just handle my own clock. That leads right into the next question, which is, what is it that you're specifically most excited about funding when it comes to AI applications, right? Obviously, AI is literally running the entire gamut from front-end customer-facing to back-end operations. You just talked about it, being able to reset passwords and other things that happen behind the scenes. But are there any that like particularly light your fire that you think are really exciting?
Well, I have three kids and I can't name one of my favorites. So I can't name a favorite portfolio company either. But we have some really, really smart folks doing some solving some really great problems inside our portfolio. So I'll call out a couple specifically. Lexful is rethinking how MSPs interact with documentation. And so if when Chris started ITGlue, he created a whole new set of problems, which is that documentation goes stale. You gotta manually enter documentation after, anytime you do a task. Lexful is transforming that, and now documentation becomes a fully automated task. You have a brain for your MSP, and agents can start to pull from that documentation versus trying to extract tribal knowledge or remember what you did on a specific problem, or as you rolled out a specific project. So I guess we'll only get to one.
Fair enough. It was a good one. Next question. My goodness. M&A space. It's hot. Is the only opportunity about scale?
No, not at all. And some of the strongest acquirers are platform MSPs in the space. Yes, they are gaining scale, but as a byproduct of that scale, they're doing a whole heck of a lot more. When we were doing M&A at Fully Managed and we grew from 30 to 100 million, it was about transforming our systems and workflows and getting more efficient and being able to have roles that you don't have in smaller MSPs, like product management or like research and development. And so the customers that use these MSPs are actually the ultimate benefactors, because the MSPs at scale are getting more and more mature with the cybersecurity programs that they offer, or how they deliver services, or the caliber of VCIOs that they're able to hire. So it's not at all just about a race to the biggest top line and then the EBITDA number associated with that, and the scale that it creates returns for the private equity firms funding it. There's a ton of opportunity inside those MSPs to unfold.
And how do your portfolio companies help an MSP owner get top dollar in a sale?
Well, look, do you want to be part of the next or part of the last? The MSPs that are embracing the early stage companies that exist in our portfolio are signaling to the market that they're innovative, that they're on top of the latest cybersecurity trends, that they're embracing AI, and as a result, their companies are going to get more profitable. They're going to be more valuable to their customers. They're going to have a differentiated product offering, and these are all things that the acquirers are looking for. They're not looking for run-of-the-mill, boring, old, non-innovative MSPs that are going to get aged out, because yes, there's a huge consolidation rate going on in the MSP space right now. There's also a pretty high attrition rate of just MSPs going out of business because they weren't able to cut it. It's a hard business, man. I ran an MSP for 20 years. And if you just sit on your laurels and expect to collect recurring revenue every month without focusing on, what's next and how you're going to bring the next gen solutions to the customers, or how you're going to leverage cloud or AI,
So thank you. That was great. Last question of the official 8. If you're an MSP owner watching this right now, what is one move that you should be making? In fact, let me rephrase that. If you were sitting at the kind of bar at the airport after leaving a conference, and some guy was sitting next to you, really nice guy, and he's a new owner in the space, what's the one piece of advice that you would give that you think is really timely right now for an MSP owner?
Can I do two over 30? Great.
Yep.
The first thing I would do is I would pick up the phone and I would call 5 of the most inspirational MSP operators that you know. And whether that's the platform operators, or someone that sold their company to a platform operator, or someone that scaled their business and never took a dollar of outside funding, I would make a list. I would look for introductions. I would talk to those 5 people and start to understand what their path was. Because if you want to follow a similar path, then you better know what that path looks like. And then I think one of the things that they're going to tell you is go learn the market, like the supply chain. And that is top down in its portfolio companies. That is getting to know the end-to-end ConnectWise offering and what their plan is for the future. That is like looking outside the industry at what are some really, really strong things happening in the ServiceNow ecosystem, and then how you can apply those learnings and best practices or tools that are specifically built for the MSP space, and just make your MSP a little bit differentiated than the guy down the street.
This is a surprise question I'm going to hit you with. We've gone through our official 8 questions. You nailed it, Joel. Got every one of them under 60 seconds, so good for you. Is this moving forward with all that's happening at the speed of AI? Are you more excited, or do you think that the MSP space is going to be facing increased challenges? Is it about to get harder, or is it about to get more exciting, more growth?
I still remember the pit in my stomach when I sat through the BPOS to Office 365 Microsoft presentation, where they basically said that all of your margins are going to be eroded down to 20% if you don't do this and that. Or no, even if you do this and that. And so that became like the high bar. And we're going, oh my gosh, like how are we going to run a business? And but wow, that M360 or that Office 365 is pretty cool. Imagine not having to support small business servers or Exchange servers anymore. And then the next 15 years happened. And then it's like, oh, okay. And we're still actually solving for that problem. There's still, a lot of that out there. And so I think we are in the greatest moment that MSPs ever had, because we still have the first, through the first phases that we're pulling through, be it cloud, be it cybersecurity, be it productivity. We're just like at the very, very edges of that. And now we have a whole other transformational moment around AI that we get to embrace and live through and lead. And so I think it's just such an exciting moment for the space. There's capital, there's maturity, there's great leaders. And so I just can't wait to see what the next 15 years looks like.
Awesome, man. Well, this was a great episode. I want to thank you again, not only for being a guest and sitting in the hot seat, but also supporting as a co-sponsor with Young America Capital. So thank you to those guys as well. You can find Joel Abramson on LinkedIn. You can go to topdown.com if you'd like to learn more about his organization. We will see you next time. If you know an MSP leader that should be part of this series, find me on LinkedIn, send me a message. All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you next time.
Okay. Thanks.